You know how liberals are obsessed with diversity, which is just a code word meaning less white people, less straight white people to be exact, but mostly just less white people? Well, NBC News is highlighting several groups which have taken diversity to a whole new level. Meet the Black outdoorsy groups reclaiming the joys of nature. Black culture boasts a rich history with nature, and Black people across the country are enjoying the outdoors by forming their own communities of nature enthusiasts. Oh, it means what you think it means. Apparently, there are numerous Black organizations out there which organize camping trips and hiking trips for, well, Black people only, so that they don't have to have the burden of being around white people. Of course, the Dilbert comic creator Scott Adams was completely canceled within 24 hours after he said that he enjoyed moving to a particular neighborhood where people have a lot in common, including their ethnicity, and recommended that maybe other people might enjoy similar circumstances. But if you're Black and you want to go camping or hiking with only Black people, then you get a feature in NBC News. Groups like Vibe Tribe Adventures, Outdoorsy Black Women, and the National Brotherhood of Skiers are just a few of the many organizations working to provide safe spaces for Black people to enjoy outdoor activities and dispel myths that the outdoors doesn't belong to them. Well, nobody said that they couldn't go for a hike or go camping. Today, Vibe Tribe Adventures provides events for Black people to enjoy everything from camping and fishing to archery. And speaking of Black fragility, the liberal media is freaking out over a social studies curriculum in Florida in some of these schools' textbooks because, well, it reveals some uncomfortable truths. This from CBS News. Florida's 2023 social studies curriculum will include lessons on how slaves developed skills that could be used for personal benefit, according to a copy of the state's academic standards reviewed by CBS News. Well, if the history lesson is going to be honest, the plantation owners did teach their indentured servants agricultural work, painting, carpentry, tailoring, domestic services, blacksmithing, and other skills that later, after white people freed the slaves in the Civil War, costing hundreds of thousands of white people's lives, they were able to actually use in order to make a living. Kamala Harris went down to Florida to complain about the truth being taught to the students, saying this.
How is it that anyone could suggest that in the midst of these atrocities, that there was any benefit to being subjected to this level of dehumanization?
Well, since you asked, if none of the Black people living in America today, if none of their ancestors were brought here as slaves, as terrible as it was, then most of them would have ended up being born and raised in any number of the third world countries in Africa, and many of them living in dirt huts and not even owning a pair of shoes. Instead, they get to live in the most amazing country in the history of the world while being put up on a pedestal by corporate America, Hollywood, the social media companies, academia, as if they're the most incredible, amazing, inspiring, brilliant, beautiful people on the face of the earth.
Build something Black. Let it drip with glory. Build it in love, like our ancestors' story. Bring out the beauty of what's sacred and kind. Bear your Black brilliance as you prosper and climb. Build something Black. Let us rise up together. All that we build is Black beyond measure. Join the journey at Target.com.
Of course, everything the Democrats accuse Republicans of doing wrong, they themselves are guilty of. Tell us more lies, Kamala.
And now, on top of all of that, they want to replace history with lies.
Democrats do, of course.
Middle school students in Florida to be told that enslaved people benefited from slavery.
Here's some more projection by a new gender non-conforming MSNBC contributor who has his nails painted up like a woman.
A lot of people around this country are starting to feel that we can't teach the correct history of this country because it makes white kids uncomfortable. That is at the base of this, right? That it is uncomfortable to hear that people that look like you put people that look like me in chains and make them do things. And
actually, like I said, it's uncomfortable for a certain group of people to admit the facts about the situation and, well, how it turned out for you in the end. Even Anna Kasparian, Chunk Yogurt's sidekick over at the Young Turks, the Young Jerks, the biggest leftist supposed news and commentary channel, is tired of all of the black grievances and the anti-whitism.
I think the discourse that the country is currently engaged in regard to race relations has actually led to more racial division. When we've had now 3 years straight of just brazen white people this, all white people that, Karen this, Karen that, it makes some people, including myself, a little hesitant to talk to individuals using statements like that on a regular basis. You know, doesn't take a professional, it doesn't take a tenured psychologist to understand why people would feel hesitant to engage in conversations, open dialogue, when they're constantly reading day in and day out that just the very nature of them being white means that they're racist or hateful or promote white supremacy. And I would just venture to say that maybe we need to be a little more careful in throwing that word around, racist, because when you accuse people who aren't racist of being racist, the word loses all meaning. I'm now super hesitant to believe accusations of racism toward people until I've done a full look at the story and investigation myself, because it's now used to label anyone who says anything that is considered out of line.
This is Frankenstein's monster turning on its creator. The chicken's coming home to roost, getting a taste of her own medicine. Pick your analogy. It is fantastic. And Matt Walsh over at the Daily Wire just gained some more of my respect, saying this about the backlash in the mainstream media about Jason Aldean's new song, Try That in a Small Town.
Well, because Aldean is white, number one, and conservative, and he sings country music. I mean, that's the whole reason. It's as simple as that. They accuse him of racism, but it's their own racism. Their anti-whitism. Actually, several forms of racism at play here, given all the assumptions that they're making, again, about black people by taking his lyrics as racial. That's what's driving this. And their political bigotries as well.
Now, he's been talking about anti-whitism for a bit, but never used the word. He would always call it anti-white racism. As recent as last week, in his video about the new woke Disney movie, Snow White and her 7 affirmative action friends. And so I just left a nice little comment on there saying, close, Matt, the correct term for anti-white racism is anti-whitism. Just compound anti-white racism into one word from now on so that it's cleaner and more impactful. So word is getting out, and I'll save my criticisms for Matt Walsh for another video. I don't want to make it sound like I have some big beef with him, but I am a media critic, a media analyst, and I do think that he is falling tremendously short in one particular area. Actually, his area of expertise, because to my knowledge, I don't think that he addresses the possible chemical component to the gender dysphoria epidemic about the endocrine disruptors, the BPA and the atrazine and things like that, possibly affecting neurological changes in the fetus in the womb. I mentioned this briefly in my video about RFK bringing up the atrazine. So I'll save that criticism, and it's, constructive criticism, for another video. So it's not like I'm attacking him or anything, but I do think he needs some more help, so to speak, about some other issues as well. Christopher Rufo, on the other hand, I do have a problem with, the self-proclaimed expert on critical race theory, which is just a cultural Marxist term for anti-whitism. And he has a new book out, which I'm sure actually is fairly good, but he denies that critical race theory is anti-white racism.
I think it is rhetorically unwise to frame this as, okay, this is anti-white racism.
Because he says that it affects Asians as well, but that's really just a byproduct. The effects on the Asians is really collateral damage. Everybody knows, and it's obvious, that the number one target of critical race theory are white people. But he desperately doesn't want to embolden white identity or white identity politics, or, in other words, white people sort of identifying themselves as an ethnic group with their own interests that they want to protect, preserve, and promote, like, well, every other ethnic group in a multicultural society does. That is crossing a terrible and dangerous line, according to Christopher Rufo. So he desperately doesn't want to frame critical race theory as anti-whiteism, let alone use the proper and accurate terminology for what it is. And there may or may not be, well, obviously there is, an entire chapter in my new book on anti-whiteism that I'm finishing up now. I'm doing the final rewrite, and then I have to make sure all the footnotes are properly sourced. There's going to probably be about 1,000 footnotes in this book, just like there are in my last 3 or 4 books. Very well documented, very well sourced. That'll be out at the end of the year. But until then, join my exclusive Locals community by clicking the link in the description below and sponsor my channel for $5 a month in order to read all of my hot takes and see the video clips that are a little bit too sensitive for the big tech platforms. It's like a private Facebook page that's a members-only subscription in order to access, and it's a way to support my channel and get some of the unfiltered content that you're not going to find anywhere else. So click the link in the description below and check it out.